Random Tree, and this is the third episode of this crap. I don't have much time. Originally I was going to do a recap, but I decided against it after realizing how long this chapter is compared to the first two. So let's just jump right in. If I can get into a good position real quick, that would be nice, because I cannot edit videos, and this would be a sucky video if I couldn't get into a good position. My introduction to the 6th grade class at Stoneberry Elementary went every bit as horrifically as I'd expected. I'm a bit sick, so don't ignore that. As soon as I opened my mouth to speak, I saw those words shoot up like rockets from bookshelves in the back of the classroom. Dork, lonely, loser, Klutzdorb. I tried to blink the words away, but they only ballooned up bigger. After 2 painful minutes of silence, I managed to mumble, "My name is Flea." And the same girls I'd seen earlier at the pencil machine, who were now sitting in the front row of my classroom, giggled. So much for a new beginning. As I stared down at my wordy sneakers and took a stumbling step towards my seat. 2 hands pressed gently against my shoulders, freezing me in place. I looked up into the smiling face of my new homeroom teacher, Miss Divinity Lawson. Miss Lawson was most assuredly the youngest teacher I'd ever had. She was the prettiest, too. Her hair tumbled down her shoulders in long, loopy curls, put a crown on Divinity's Lawson's head, and she'd look just like a storybook princess. "May I have the honor of introducing you to the class, Felicity?" she asked. I managed to nod. Miss Lawson kept her hands on my shoulders while she talked about me. She even made me sound almost interesting. Felicity had been on some marvelous adventures. She's lived in 6 different states with her family. I was nearly smiling by the time I settled into my empty seat in the front row, right beside a boy doodling chickens on his notebook. There hadn't been enough magic in the room to stop my stutters or to make me feel confident in front of a room full of people, but I was smiling just barely, which means Midnight Gulch was already different from all the other places I'd been. Miss Lawson walked to the chalkboard and scrawled out a familiar word, Stoneberry, which didn't make much sense. Even I knew the name of the school, and it was only my first day. Everybody else had already been in class a few weeks, so surely they knew the name of their own educational institution. Next, Miss Lawson took a stick of yellow chalk and cut a squeaky line down the center of the word, making it to Stoneberry. And that got me to thinking about the spider egg that Mama found in the way back seat of the pickle jalapeno. None of us knew anything about spiders or their eggs, and while we didn't have anything against them, Mama didn't want them crawling through the van or nesting in her hair. So she squished the egg with her Thrinstone flip-flop, and we soon discovered that's probably the worst thing she could have done, because about 1,000,000 baby spiders exploded out of the egg and scampered across the back seat. Mama screamed and whapped at them with her flip-flop, but I think most of them got away. If they're still in the van, we don't see them very often. Spiders don't make much fuss. When Miss Lawson made 2 words out of Stoneberry, it became a spider word to me. Suddenly, those 2 words split apart, and new words creep crawling out of them. Across the walls and under the door and out into the hallway. Tone, Turbo, B, Note, Ruby. Ruby's the only word I wanted to catch. I pulled my shoe up in my lap and scrolled Ruby across the toe. I hoped somebody out in the hall snatched up Turbo B or Turbo Boy. Wasn't a real word as far as I knew, but it sure did sound good. Here Give me a sec. Here's the truth of it. Miss Lawson hollered, spinning around to face us all. Her sudden burst of energy surprised me so much that I jumped, but nobody else seemed to notice. I guess they'd had a few weeks to get used of Miss Lawson's energy. Even though she stood tall and smiled, I could see jitters, impressionable souls, step lively. All those words were blooming up like flowers out of her glossy black hair. Miss Lawson said, "Every person you will ever meet, and every place you will ever go, and every building you set your foot in has a story to tell. In fact, she exclaimed, one of my most favorite stories happened in this exact place." Miss Lawson's eyes sparkled in such a pretty way when she spoke. I wished I could put words together as easily as she could. Everything about her seemed bright, even her clothes. She wore a polka-dotted sweater and a green skirt that swirled like a lily pad when she spun toward us. She walked across the front of the classroom while she talked, her purple heels click-clacking against the tiles. As I'm sure you know, Midnight Gulch, Tennessee is famous for 2 things. The first is Dr. Zook's famous ice cream factory. For those of you who are new to town, Miss Lawson winked down at me. You'll be happy to know there are 45 marvelous and mysterious flavors of ice cream for you to try. Cake flavors, bacon flavors, you name it, Dr. Zook's makes it. I might have been in Midnight Gulch for less than 24 hours, but I already knew about Dr. Zulk's ice cream. I knew because of Aunt Chloe's freezer was packed full of it. Chloe's partial to the chocolate chip pork full of it. Chocolate chip rind flavor, pork rind flavor. But Miss Lawson clapped her hands. Midnight Gulch isn't only famous for ice cream. Midnight Gulch is famous because it used to be a magical place, and the most magical people who lived here. The most famous duo ever to call Midnight Gulch their home were the brothers Threadbare. Yes, yes, yes. I pressed my hand hard against my ribs so my drum beat, yes, heart might calm down enough for me to hear the story. But it wasn't just my heart screaming yes this time, even though I was certain I'd never heard anything about those magical brothers before. My ears tingled as though it's been told some wonderful secret. I saw one word appear across the wall of the classroom. The letters, them taller than Miss Divinity Lawson, stretched all the way from the floor to the ceiling. Threadbare. I heard a steady chorus of yawns and sighs, most likely coming from people who'd heard the story once or twice or 10,000 times, but somehow I knew, before I even heard a single word, that this story would matter to me. Many years ago, Miss Lawson continued, this schoolhouse didn't exist, and this land was only an empty hillside, and on this very hillside she stomped her high-heeled shoe on the tiles to make sure we understood. On September 15, 1910, the brothers Threadbare and the other famous duo had their famous duel. Like most people in Midnight Gulch, the brothers Threadbare were simple, easygoing folks who just so happened to have a little magic in their veins. She grinned. Their real names were Stone and Barry Weatherly. The Weatherlys were from farm boys, the same as some of you. Miss Lawson crossed her arms over her chest. I wondered if her heart was pounding as loud as mine. Every family in Midnight Gulch had a different kind of magic. The Weatherly magic was a particularly wonderful kind, though, because their magic had to do with music. Whenever Stone and Barry played their songs, the whole world seemed to dance. At the first strum of Barry Weatherly's banjo, the wind would roar over the valleys, the wildflowers would wave from the hillsides, the trees would shake their limbs and clap their leaves. When Stone played his guitar, the clouds swirled into 1,000 different shapes. Cloud lions, cloud tigers, and thunderheads that ran like wild horses across the sky. Desks squeaked and popped as people leaned up in their seats, trying to get as close as they could to the story Miss Lawson was telling. If the right person tells a story, I guess it doesn't matter how many times you've heard it. Your heart still hears it brand new, and Miss Lawson was a A+ storyteller. I think I'm gonna make this chapter a two-parter because of it's getting pretty long, so, see you then.